Morning, everyone. This is BritSimon. So I'm still dealing with a bit of a sore throat, so apologies for that in advance. I'll probably be coughing in this video, but anyway, I thought I'd jump online and take a few questions. We're coming down to the wire in DV2023, of course, so I've just been answering this morning a number of questions from people on my blog and so on. People worried about whether they're going to get an interview, and I think it's sort of dawning on people what a difficult position they're actually in, and up to now perhaps people haven't understood that. So I'm happy to sort of explain that to people. I think we'll probably be talking about that. The other question I'm expecting to get is about DV2020 and DV2021. And again, there is no news on that. So I just want to cover that right at the beginning. I'm bound to get questions on it. What about DV2020? Has it been forgotten? How about 2021? There's just no news. There's nothing from the appeal process, and we have to wait for the appeal. So anyway, good morning to some of you. Morning, Mohammed. Nuri Sufyan, is it? Let's see. Casper. I quite enjoy that name. There is someone quite famous in the DV space whose real name is Casper. So let me just have a look at that. Your case number is 2023 EU 31600 MC Warsaw. When will you get your 2NL? Okay, so let me show you. I want to show what I do to check this, because I've been through it before, but not everyone understands how to check their chance of getting their interview, right? So you come to Zarthisius's page, and Casper, you probably he may enjoy your name, but you come along to the page for all of the 2023 data. The link is shown up here in the corner. I'm just going to change this a little bit. There you go. Just makes it a little bit easier. And you can see there's data here for all the years, but you'll look at the 2023 data. And you want to search for your embassy, in your case, Warsaw, right? And have a look at a couple of things here. Have a look at the data here, and also the number of cases that they're issuing further down here. Now, the first thing that I would say is that in May, after the VB, not the one just recently, but the one before that, they issued 380 2NLs. That's a lot of 2NLs. They're doing a lot of interviews, right? And you can see that in recent months, they've done a lot. In February, March, April, and May, they did around about 300, 350 per month. So it's really, it's a high pace. They are trying to get the work done. You can also see in this chart, they're up to about case number 30,000. They're more or less current, right? So they're in good shape. You've just become current, and you're wondering about your interview. I think you've got a good chance of interview in your particular case, because this embassy is doing so well. But you have to wait and see. There's no guarantee, right? I'm just making a sort of an approximation here. You can also tell, by the way, the color green here, the brighter color green in this section, shows where the most recent 2NL activity came from, okay? Because these cases are in ready status. And you can see that, largely speaking, they're getting into this range. They issued a lot of 2NLs in this range, but also 2NLs from all the earlier ranges. That's pretty typical of what you will see in a good performing embassy, okay? So you're one of the better embassies, Casper. That's good for you. Good luck with that. I hope it works out for you, but I can't guarantee it will. Okay, so let's try and go through some other questions as well. Abu Dhabi's going well. Nuri, you're saying you've got an interview. That's great. There's not very many people being interviewed in Abu Dhabi, I have to say. So I just looked at that this morning. They are starting to get up into that sort of later range here, but the numbers are pretty low. Like the May The May interviews sent out there were 48. So it's not a great deal of cases. So you're lucky to get one of those 48 2NLs. So, good luck, make it count. For goodness sake, make sure you've read all the instructions, right? Don't go to the interview underprepared. Make sure you take all the documents you need to take the minimum required documents, and then extra documents that you feel you may need. Okay, prepare well, please. Okay, good luck with that. 221G, Abdi is saying, is killing your chances. Yeah. If you're from the Middle East, if you're from Iran in particular, you can expect 221G to last 4 or 5 months. And it's a problem for people that are interviewed late in the process. All I can say is it's my expectation that KCC are going to try and clear up as many AP cases, 221G, in September as they can. Okay, so that's what they normally do. There's normally a bit of a sort of a flood of approvals from the 221G cases. So fingers crossed for you. I hope it works out that way for you. Hi Tenzin. Hello Makiesi. Okay, question here from Mohammed. As you know, 3 embassies process Iran cases, Abu Dhabi, Ankara, and Yerevan. Which one do you recommend according to the current situation in every embassy? I assume you're a 2024 case. It really isn't sensible to try and predict how things will be a year from now, right? 6 months from now. It's not really sensible. Ankara has a lot of capacity, for example, but right now they're limiting the number of interviews badly, and we don't know why. Abu Dhabi doesn't have a lot of cases typically. I mean, you can see the numbers here. It's not a huge number, but they're sort of doing okay. They're issuing a few interviews, but I'm not sure they're keeping up with all the interviews they should be. And then Yerevan, I haven't looked at for a little while. Let me have a check of Yerevan. Yeah, Yerevan's actually doing pretty good with the number of cases it's accepting right down there, and the backlog for Asia and EU cases. Yeah, that's pretty much where you'd expect to see it. It looks like it's a little bit more backlogged in EU. That number, the highest number that they've accepted there's one at 32,000, but you can see they've just issued interviews for the sort of 22,000 to 27,000 range from the latest 2NLs, right? So even though they're issuing quite a lot, they do have a small backlog. It's not as bad as some embassies, but it is probably a month or two of backlog. So you've got 3 embassies, none of which are sort of stunning good performers. They're not terribly bad either. Ankara is probably the most disappointing at the moment, in a sense. I'll show you Ankara. So here's Ankara's performance, right? Let's put it for all, all cases. As you can see, they're heavily backlogged. They're backlogged right back to early case numbers, which is frustrating, particularly for local applicants. Because they're only seeing interviews up to about case number 10 or 11,000 for EU. For Asia, they're also backlogged way back, a few months worth, and not many new cases. As you can see, most of the interviews are going to EU cases in Ankara. And it's been that way, certainly in May. There was only 1 case went to an Iranian. Now, and I assume that's an Iranian. It's an Asia case. In Ankara, it tends to be Iran typically. So that's problematic. But there is this general perception that Iranian cases don't have a high chance of approval in the last 3 or 4 months of the lottery because it takes so long for their 221G to be processed. So it would almost be a waste of an interview slot by giving those cases to Iranians, and that's why I think if they're doing anything, they're moving them more towards EU. Now, Iranians won't agree with what I just said. I understand that. Iranians are very, frankly, aggressive in the way that they approach these things. Cases, must go to Iran. the empire of Iran, as I've been told in the past, which just shocks me that people still think of it that way. But nevertheless, I'm talking about realities. I'm not talking about what is fair, what is right. I'm just talking about what actually happens, right? So you can choose to get upset all you like about that, but that's the reality. Okay, so Nairobi, is Nairobi giving us a chance? No, Nairobi is not giving a chance. They must have a massive backlog. Let me show you Nairobi. So Nairobi, in the whole month of May, gave 43 interviews. This is an embassy that's got to do, to keep up with performance, they would have to do 2,000 or 3,000 interview 2,000 or 3,000 people a year as a minimum, because they're taking all of the local cases and cases from countries around them. So even on a poor year, a bad year, they should be issuing a couple of thousand visas a year, and then just not doing the work it would take to actually get there. They must be building a massive backlog, right? And as you can see from the numbers here, we can see that if you're in AF region, they've only taken cases up to about 24,000, and not all cases under 24,000. That's a very low showing there. So they are several months backlogged, which is very disappointing. I don't think they plan to fix it. There was a case a couple of years ago, I think it was a couple of years ago, where one embassy in particular, Kathmandu, was getting behind. It had a massive backlog, and then 1 month they issued an enormous number of 2NLs in that embassy, and they must have dedicated their whole focus at that embassy in clearing up the DV lottery cases. So that was a big turnaround. So is it possible that an embassy can do that? Yeah, it's possible. But is Nairobi going to do that? I don't think so. I think they're going to disappoint people. I think they're just determined that they, don't want to do this work for whatever reason. I don't understand why, but that's what they're doing. Okay. Do we need to send supporting documents in DV2024? No, the documents procedure is cancelled for 2024 officially. That's the official word. Okay, so no. Is I-134 a requirement for interview? Please enlighten. The I-134 is one of the ways that you can satisfy. Let me just switch this. It's one of the ways that you can satisfy the CO that you're not going to become a public charge. Okay. There are other ways that you can do that. You can show bank savings of your own money, right? If you have, let's say, a family of 2 people and you've got at least $10,000 per person saved, then therefore $20,000, and you've got that in a bank account, you can show your own savings, and that will satisfy the CO as well as an I-134 would, right? So in that case, you don't need an I-134, you just show your own savings. But if you don't have your own savings, and if your job isn't something that is going to be instantly hireable in the USA, then the CO may feel that you are at risk of not doing well in the States and would want you to have someone there, a family member or a friend, who is prepared to help you. Okay, and that's what the I-134 is supposed to do. It's not a legal commitment from the sponsor's point of view. It's not a legally enforceable contract, but it is kind of a promise, and it gives the CO some comfort that you know someone in the States that will provide that I-134 for you, that then will support you as you need support in the first few months of being in the States while you get your feet on the ground. So it's not a requirement in all cases. It depends on the case. It's used more often at some embassies than others, but it, in theory, can be used anywhere. There's no embassy. I would say there is no embassy that will never use it, right? There are some embassies that rarely use it, but there is no embassy that will not use it, right? It's part of immigration law. I saw there was a YouTuber who was selling I-134s effectively. Number one, I think that's illegal, and she shouldn't be doing it, and she's a bloody idiot for doing it. But number two, someone that you don't know, that you've been matched with by some third party who's taken some money from you to do that. That person has no skin in the game. They don't know you. They don't care about you. That's not a good solution. It's just as likely to get someone refused if the CO finds out that you don't know this person and that you only know this person through this bloody YouTuber idiot that is arranging these fraudulent I-134s. That's not going to help you. That's likely to end up in you being refused. Okay, so don't do that. Don't get an I-134 that way. So if you have a friend or a family member or a friend of a friend, someone that you can ask, then have an I-134 if you can get it, right? It helps, unless you've got substantial savings and therefore you don't need it, or an extremely lucrative and attractive profession, like you're an IT expert whiz kid, right? And in that case, you're very likely to get a job in America very quickly, and therefore won't be a public charge concern. Okay, let me just take a cough sweep here. Right. So more info on Affidavit of Support, just gave you that, and also change of names. Don't know what you mean by change of names. I don't know what you mean. You have to be more clear about what you mean in your questions. What case number is that correct embassy gotten to? It doesn't really matter what they've gotten to. People think, I'll show you where they got to, but people think that because they got to case number 20,000 and I'm case number 21,000 or whatever, that I'm next, and that's not how it works. Okay, so let me show you Ankara. So they've got to about case number 26,000, but that is not to say that every case under 26,000 has been scheduled. It's absolutely not the case that every case under 26,000 has been scheduled. Okay, and still they're restricting. They took 30 cases in each of January, February, March. Then they took 25 in April and May, and I expect them to do the same in June. So that's what they're taking. It's not enough. They're deliberately restricting the interviews. There should be much more interviews than this at Ankara. So it should be a busy embassy, but yeah, they're not. How many visas remain for AS? Right. So this is something else you can see on this page. You can see the number of cases that have been issued. Right. So Africa has had 12,230 issued. And these ones in AP, they are just being printed. The visas are being printed in this status. It's a special status. And so, you add those numbers to the 12,230. So it's 12,530 effectively. So that's how many Africa has got. Asia at about 6,400 there. Europe about 14,500. OC 573 and SA 1369. In terms of the quotas for the regions, Africa is the one that is way behind. They're only at 50% of their quota, and they're way behind. So they are likely to donate some of their quota to other regions, right? So even though Asia has got 6,400 issued, with 2,300 people at ready status, therefore programmed for interview. That if you added that number with the ones that got issued, you'd actually say they're at their quota. But because there are some of the ready cases that are no-shows, they're people that won't ever show up for their interview, and because Asia will get some additional quota from Africa, there is still some space, some capacity, some additional visas for Asia. We're not capped out yet in Asia, Europe, or any of the countries, actually, any of the regions. So I don't believe we're going to see a region stopped in August. I think they'll continue to schedule cases in August, simply because Africa is going to donate some additional visas. That's basically why. Okay, so. But I can't be precise. because I don't know exactly how far they're going to go. Okay, so we have to see how they want to go, how they want to, how close to the 55,000 they want to get to. Something we should understand, by the way, there is no law that says they have to issue all 55,000 visas. If they get to 52,000 and they think that's enough, they can stop right there. Okay, if they get to 48,000, they think that's enough, they can stop right there. Okay, there is no law that says they have to issue all the visas. So these sort of questions about how many visas remain, you're asking an impossible prediction, because you're asking me to know their minds about how far they're going to take it. I can't do that, right? So so we just have to wait and see what happens, right? I can tell you what the math says, but the math does not necessarily understand what's in the human brain and what they're planning to do. They went over the quotas last year, and I'm sure they were criticized for doing that. I'm sure they've probably said, oh, we won't do that again. We better stop short this time. We better not get so close to the 55,000. That's my expectation. I don't think they're going to go to 55,000. So, we'll see. We'll see. Islamabad embassy is not honoring immigration promises for Afghans. That's true. Now, after 2 years, should have sufficient workforce. Yep, absolutely. You're making a statement, Ibrahim. I can't disagree with you at all. You're exactly right. There's just nothing we can do about it. Okay. Hi, Brett. My visa was issued in Bahrain. Would going to Uganda, then proceed to USA, have an effect on me at the US port of entry? No. You don't have to travel from Bahrain because that's where your visa is issued. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. At the airport, they know where you came from, but they don't care. That's not an important part of the immigration process. It doesn't matter which countries you visited on your route to the USA. Okay. Are you okay, Mr. Britt? I'm okay. I'm just still suffering with a cold I picked up a couple of weeks ago. So thank you for asking, Santa. Do you think a case number DV2023 AF2K who entered phase 4 last January will have a chance for interview with a bad embassy like Riyadh? Okay, so what a frustrating thing. You did everything right. You submitted early, I should imagine. You got processed early in January. You're a low case number. You absolutely deserve a right to have your interview, but unfortunately, Riyadh are not playing fair. So you can see what they're doing. I think they must be, let me just look at your Africa, right? Yeah. So they just aren't issuing very many cases, very many interviews, which is frustrating. But you can see they're up to about 20,000, which means they're about 4 months backlogged. So you may get a chance. You should get a chance. If there's any fairness in this process, you should get a chance. You've got 2 months left. So fingers crossed for you. I just can't guarantee that you will. Okay. Imad, question is, I don't have the original date of birth certificate. Is there a Xerox copy of the same accepted by KCC? Only if it's a certified copy. Much smarter thing to do would be to get an official extract or a reproduction of the birth certificate. I obviously don't know procedures in your country. I don't know your country even. But in the UK, where I came from, for example, if you had lost your birth certificate, you could go to the issuing authority and you could get an extract, which is like a replacement birth certificate. And it's considered as good as the original from an immigration point of view. So you should try and get that, a replacement copy of your birth certificate, if you can do that. A Xerox copy of it, no. Very unlikely to be accepted as an original document. Okay. Now, when you go to your interview, by the way, you do take a photocopy, a Xerox copy of your original certificate, because you want to give them the photocopy. You don't want to give them the original, but you have to show them the original, and then make it clear that you want to leave the copies with them. Okay. 61K in Nairobi. Is it possible to transfer the interview to Rwanda or Tanzania? So I don't know about those two embassies, but the problem that you have is that KCC are not cooperating with requests to transfer cases out. There is a policy that they have that says you're supposed to interview where you live, right? I saw one of the lawyers question whether that policy was even legal, but whether it's legal or not, until it's challenged, that is the policy that they're operating on. So KCC are not supportive of moving interviews. So the only real chance of getting an interview moved, if you're in the AV status at a particular embassy, is if you speak to some other embassy which you have some connection with. Preferably you live there, or you can move there, or you've got family there, or you've got some connection there, right? And somehow you convince that embassy to ask on your behalf, ask KCC for your interview to be assigned to them, right? If you can do that, then yes, that's when I've seen people get reassigned. But other than that, and that's clearly hard to do, right? It's not very likely to happen for most people. But other than that, they don't want to listen to your requests about moving you to another embassy. That's just part of the way they operate, unfortunately. It's very sad. Do I know the number of selectees from Africa and the highest case number from you? No. I assume you're talking about DV2024. No, we don't know the number of selectees. The highest case number I had heard was 122K. I then heard about an absolutely crazy number, like 180K. But it could just be a rumor, it could be BS. And so, I don't really know that one's true. And I've heard no numbers in between that range, which, if you're into statistics and you understand a thing called German battle tank theory, German tank theory, you'll understand why I'm not comfortable with the highest number when I have nothing between 122 and 180. So I tend to distrust these highest numbers. Got the same thing going on in Oceania, where I've heard a number of cases at 4,600, 47, 4,800, those sort of case numbers. And then I heard from one guy at 6,800. And it's not that I don't trust that particular individual. He seems like a decent guy from what I can tell. But I've got no cases in between those, right? Between the 4,800 and 6,800. So I tend to not trust that number. There's something weird about it, right? And it could be what I call an outlier. In some years, we see numbers cut off at some number, let's say 80,000 or 90,000 or whatever. And then all of a sudden there's a case at 130,000, completely randomly. And it's an outlier. And so there may be a true case at 6,800 in OC, or a true case at 180,000 in Africa. But it doesn't necessarily mean that there are all the cases in between that range. It could just be a one-off random case number right at the end of the case number range. And I kind of understand why that can happen in the draw, and it has happened in a number of years. So so it's likely in this year as well. Okay. Speaking of down under, case at Sydney, 2024 AS 21K. Interview location is Sydney. Is there any chance for interview? So I was just asked whether I know the selectee numbers. I don't. Nobody does yet. They're not published yet. So because we don't know the number of selectees, your case number is more or less meaningless at the moment, right? And you can't compare it necessarily to previous years. So it's really important that we have the selectee numbers. You could have case number 20,000, 21,000 in Asia, and you might have 3,000 actual cases in front of you, or 10,000 cases in front of you. I don't know which it is yet, right? And so your chances vary greatly between those two things. I don't know how many cases there are. So we have to wait, okay? Can't make predictions at the moment. Okay. Abdi from Somalia and Bahrain. Did interview. Can I? Okay. There's no question there, Abdi. Okay, my interview is scheduled 7th of July at Bombay. Interesting. Bombay consulate, and all the documents and medicals are done and all set. Oh, very good. Well done, Vijay. Good luck, and please do prepare well. Right? Take your chance and do it well. Can I get the visa if my passport, which has only 5 months to expire during interview? The traditional answer to this is no. You're supposed to have at least 6 months. It actually isn't such a big deal for an immigrant visa, but I would go ahead and just replace that. It's much easier to replace the passport before the interview than after, right? And if you can't replace it, then what you can do is you get the visa stamped into the old passport, and then you'll get a new passport, and you might have to travel with both passports. But it's a bit of a pain. It's much better to just go and get the new passport, right? And it's much easier to do that, because how are you going to get a passport renewed once you're in the USA? It's much harder, right? So you're better off to do that before the interview, okay? High case number in Asia, I think, is about 45,000 for DV 2024, but we have to wait and see. It's not 100% confirmed yet. Aziedo, my case number is 2023 AF 20,600. Submitted and unlocked October 10th. My embassy is Accra. Am I safe, sir? You're absolutely not safe. No. Accra's a bloody shit show. And they're only issuing 25 appointments a month. So no, you're absolutely not safe. I'm sorry you hadn't realized that. I can't promise you that you're safe, but it sucks, but nobody is safe at Accra. Okay. What's new about DV 2021? Nothing at all. I said that at the beginning of the video. Feel free to rewind. Hope you're doing well. I'm Moroccan. My case number is 70K. But I live in France. I'm wondering if this will speed up the interview, perhaps. I'm a DV 2024 winner. Okay, so even though you're living in France and you'll interview at Paris, the timing of your interview is still to do with Africa, right? So you'll have to wait until Africa 70,000 is made current in the visa bulletin, and then an interview can be arranged for you. Now, Africa 70,000 in DV 2024 is probably not as high as it sounds. It's higher than any DV 2023 case number, but that doesn't make any difference right now because we don't know how many selectees there are, right? So, so you have to just wait and see to see what your chances are. But no, it won't be interviewed faster in Paris than it would be in some African consulate. Okay, it's based on the region. Okay, I was a resident of UAE 1 year, resident sticker on your passport, good. However, in reality, I lived 2 weeks in Dubai, then left the country. Please took it. Well, if you can prove that you were only there for 2 weeks, if you can prove that without a doubt, then no, you don't need to provide the police certificate. But think about whether your documentation proves that you left that quickly. If it doesn't, then go ahead and apply for the police certificate and see, if you're only there 2 weeks, presumably you didn't get in any trouble. So just get the police certificate, right? It's a simple thing to do. Why gamble, right? So there you go. Guys, play for me. I want to give this a try this year. Well, there you go. I'm not a praying person, but good luck. Hi, Simon. What's wrong with Kenya? They jumped from 23,000 to 57,000. Tell us about Kenya. They didn't jump from there to there. This is what I'm saying. Just because they've done one at 57,000, it doesn't mean that they've done all of the interviews for all the case numbers under 57,000. There's a video I produced round about 6 or 7 weeks ago that explains why that happens. It explains how AV queues, the queues for AV status cases at an embassy, how they operate. And the time you enter the AV queue is important because the timing doesn't or your position doesn't change. When you enter the queue, that's it. You're in the queue and you're in your position. So the case number at 57,000 couldn't get in there before case numbers lower than that, and my video explains why. Okay, so but Kenya Embassy, they're not trying to interview everyone. They're for whatever reason, they've decided they're not going to do all the work they need to do this year. Don't understand why, but that's the way it is. Okay. How long is Affidavit of Support valid from before I can use it because it's been issued by my host family? You generally want to get it just in the last couple of months before the interview. The reason is that you're supposed to support it or give supporting documents along with the I-134. It should have the pay slips, which should be up-to-date pay slips, a 1040 or W-2, which are tax documents to show annual salaries, etc., annual income, and then a photo ID. But those salary details need to be up to date. Okay, so you want to get that in the last couple of months. So basically, when you get your 2NL, then you ask it for the I-134, right? Don't get it earlier than that. DV winners from Rwanda. Received a visa according to, oh, great, moving to Boston. I was just with some friends yesterday, I think, for dinner, or day before yesterday, and they'd just come back from Boston. They were saying how much they like that city. It is cold for 6 or 7 months of the year. It can be horrible weather, but it's a good city. It's got lots of things going on. So as long as you're prepared for the weather. Now, when you get here, when you've established yourself, then you can submit a petition for your sons over 21. Okay, but it takes a long time, and in fact, you may even need you may become a citizen before you can ever bring your kids, and it just takes a very long time. It's going to be years, right? So you know, they've got to continue what they're doing. The only other thing they could do is if they're of studying age, they could go to university in the States and they could live with you while they're going to university, for example. But obviously that's extremely expensive. So it depends on your opportunities here in the States. Okay. Okay. 2024, 8,000 Accra Embassy. My wife will be due in October. Hopefully the same time the interview can. Okay. The timing of the baby is kind of important, but whatever stage you're at, when you have a baby in this process, there is a way to add the baby onto the process. So don't stress about that. Just have the baby and move on with life. And depending on the timing of when you actually get your interview, which could be in October or November or December, you'll figure out how to add the baby at that point. I have an article on my blog that explains that and puts it into the different timelines. So go read that article. And you can go to my blog and you can search for, just search for newborn, or Google the words BritSimon and newborn, and you'll get to one of those articles. Okay. I can provide all the 5-year semester GPA reports, but I can't provide the graduation certificate. Is there any problem during the interview? Look, you can't expect the CO to go through 5 years worth of crappy documentation to figure out that you actually passed your exam. Okay, that's just not how these things work. You need to provide a summarized certificate to say you've passed it. So do what you have to do to get that. Okay. These interviews last typically 3 to 5 minutes, right? It's not a long time, and a CO doesn't want to sit there and look at all this crap of data that you're going to present, right? Documentation on 5 years of study. They're not interested in that. You think they're going to sit there and add up all of your credits from all the years and figure out that yes, you passed? Come on, get real. It's not going to work like that. Okay. Ali, another question. My interview after about 1 month, and I'm scared of 221G. My documents are all set, nothing missing, but I'm scared as I'm from Iraq. Any advice? You have to be a bit just fatalistic about this. You can't do anything about it. You've done as much as you can. You've got all your documents. You hope and pray that you're going to be approved without any delays. But with the best will in the world, particularly being from Iraq, you must expect there's going to be some concern, right? So they're going to look into your background a little bit heavier, and it could take time. So fingers crossed for you, but there's no guaranteed way to avoid 221G. Any chance in Frankfurt? Yeah, they're doing pretty well. Frankfurt are doing okay. Someone just say I just answered that. Okay. Winner of 2024, case number 53K, Angolan, currently living in Brazil. My interview location will be here today at the consulate in Rio de Janeiro. When am I going to get my 2NL? You won't have your 2NL until well into next year, okay? Because your case number is not going to be current until well into next year. Exactly when, I don't know. But don't think it's going to be soon. And there's lots of time for you to understand the flow of things easier and better between now and then. So no point in asking me here in June when you're going to be interviewed. It could be as much as, nearly a year from now. Okay, so you've got lots of time to learn. What's wrong with Niger Embassy since they didn't program anybody this year? Again, they've just decided not to. I don't know what gives them, the right to do that, but they just decided it. It just is wrong, but you can't do anything about it. Mohammed, why this year we didn't see current the last 3 months of the fiscal year as usual? It's not as usual. This is the funny thing. People don't seem to understand. They've looked at the cases from 2020, 21, and 22, and they developed an understanding that every region goes current every year. Those 3 years were a complete mess. The processing was screwed up by COVID, and then Trump being in office and blocking people with bans and all this sort of thing. It was a complete mess. And so in those years, the government made the cases current, even though they had too many selectees, and they did the best that they could, particularly in DV2022. We forced them to do better in DV2020 and 21, but in 22, they gave it a really good shot, and they made everyone current. They did as many interviews as they could. But there are too many people selected in DV2023. Same as there were in DV2022. And so many thousands of people are going to miss out. And that's just the way it's supposed to be. There's 119,000 people selected for 55,000 visas. We're not supposed to see regions going current. That's not supposed to work that way. And Africa basically is current right now. So, they're doing the best they can, but it was never likely that we were going to see the regions going current across the board as we've seen in previous years. So it isn't, as usual. Those last 3 years were unusual, okay? And what we're seeing now is just actually what we should have expected. I've said that for months and years, frankly. I've explained the same process. If you didn't listen to me, I'm sorry, I don't understand why. You probably listen to somebody else who doesn't know what they're talking about. But this is the reality of the DV lottery. If they over-select, if they select 119,000 people for 55,000, that's too many. If they select 80,000 for the 55,000 visas, that would be good. In fact, they'd probably have a second draw in that scenario. They can select up to about 90 or 100,000 visas and still, and that would make me feel comfortable that they're going to actually, make most regions current. But at 119,000, that's too many people. Denny says, thanks for the answer, Simon. Please, if I stayed in another country 5 months and 10 days because of the pandemic in 2020, not 6 months, do I have to get proof of penalty, police certificate, you mean, in that country? I would. Again, it was like I was saying earlier, it's not complicated normally to get these police certificates. And yes, technically, you could argue that you're only supposed to provide it at 6 months. But if you can't prove 100% sure that you were only in that country for 5 months and 10 days, and frankly, the CO is not going to be interested, they are entitled to ask you for the certificate anyway. Now, thinking about it, If it's previous country, it's 12 months. So you need to have been in that country for 12 months, not 6 months. So it's quite a long time, right? It's nearly 6 months, but not over 6 months, and certainly not over 12 months. So technically, you're not required to provide the police certificate, but why not get it anyway? Just make your life easier. Just avoid the chance of a delay later. If it's easy to get, go ahead and get it, all right? And then you say at the interview, here, I've got these certificates. I know I'm not required to provide that one, but I got it anyway. It looks good, right? It provides comfort that you've got nothing to hide and that you're more than happy to help them with the process, right? Just why wouldn't you do that? Okay. 2024 AF 100K, any chance in Frankfurt? Maybe, Yusuf, we don't know. We don't know how high your number really is for the reasons I explained earlier. We don't know how many selectees that we have in DV 2024. If it's a high number of selectees, then there will be some risk for the highest case numbers, and yours could be in that risky range. I don't know. Okay. I'm Asia, Sri Lanka, case number 20,900. Can I have a chance for interview? I don't know. It was nice to meet you too, but unfortunately you didn't make your question clear. I don't know what year you're in. I don't know anything about your case. I can't answer your question. Hey Simon, this is a very serious question. Hope you take it serious. What question? I don't see the question. Oh dear. I don't see the question, so I don't know what question you want me to take seriously. Juan Marquez, what a great Spanish sounding name. Hope you and the family are doing great, Simon. Muy bien. My family are great, thank you. Peter, what happens when an applicant applied as single with no kids, then one, but he is married with kids? Is that a straight visa denial? 100% denial. What a stupid thing to do. Like the instructions make it very, very clear. When you're entering it, it just makes it very clear that if you leave off a derivative, a spouse or a child, you will be disqualified. Not might be disqualified, will be disqualified. So yeah, you're going to be disqualified, 100%. I'm the winner of DV 2024, case number 53K, Angolian. Oh, I think we already answered that. Yeah, we did. Please can able to give us video about how to fill the I-134. I've done that. Look back at my YouTube videos. Look at my, you should be able to look at my videos. And I created a video a few months ago, which was on the new I-134 form, explaining how to fill it in. So there's a detailed video there already. Why is Islamabad embassy slow? Yeah, I don't know. What about high case numbers? Yeah, I don't know. Good luck, y'all. It's all worth it. Just don't move to a big city. Yeah, I'm very ambivalent about that. So big cities come with big opportunities, but also, if you're not used to that, maybe that's something that you don't enjoy. Everyone's got to pick a city that they like to live in. I live in Northern California in a city of about 85,000 people, which is really a town. It's not a huge city. And I quite like that it's small enough that when I go out, I meet people, I see people I know. Sometimes I meet people that I know someone they know, and we've got common interests and everything because it's that small of a town. But big cities have some big opportunities too. So, and they've got areas. So yeah, it's interesting though. You should let me know your experience with that one. I'd like to hear about that. Okay, we'll soon be going for interview. I hear about a consent letter that one needs if your child's father is dead. I'm from Liberia and her father died in 2018 and we parted even before he died. Okay, so it's difficult to get dead people to sign letters. That's one problem you've got, right? So, and there isn't an expectation from the CEO that a dead person will sign a letter. However, if you parted, then and you divorced, then you should have divorce papers, and the divorce papers would presumably handle the custody of the child. If on the other hand, if you don't have that sort of clear paperwork, you might want to find proof that the father of the child is dead, and that could be an official certificate if you can get it, or perhaps some sort of statement from somebody else, his parents or whoever else, in order to show that that person is dead. It's a worthwhile thing to have. Generally speaking, a CO is just going to believe you as long as you're a trustable person. They're going to accept and understand that. And again, if they may even ask the kid, if the kid is of a certain age, where's your dad? Well, dad's dead. Well, they would probably believe that, right? But put some thought into it and see how you can actually sort of provide that. And obviously that can't be through a letter. Sorry to be a bit cheeky about that, but it's just my sense of humor. I can't help myself. What do I think for the last visa bulletin in Algeria? You mean the last one that was just issued? I was a little surprised that that they increased by 5,000, but then I did the math for it, and it actually makes sense. So we know that around about 9% of the African cases are Algerian cases, and we know that there's about 2,200 cases in that last 5,000 that was made current, right? So 9% of the 2,200 would be the number of cases that are Algerians in that case number range, and not all of them will have submitted, and so we'll probably pick up another 150 interviews from that or so, which is about what they wanted or what they needed to actually hit the target, hit the 7% cap. So it seems like the government are trying to hit the 7% cap on Algeria, and so it's going very well. I mean, what can you say about Algeria? It's done great, right? Great embassy. It's done a tremendous job this year. Here we go. More info in case someone changed their names before the lottery process. Yeah, you just need paperwork for that. People change their name through marriage, for example. And if they didn't do it through marriage, then they should have some legal paperwork that explains why the name is different, right? You need to get that. It's quite simple. Have an interview in a couple of days. One of my documents is missing and won't be available on the day of interview. Would you recommend I reschedule or attend and get 221G? The latter. You get 221G. Okay? It's much better to keep the existing appointment. And depending on which document it is, they may or may not insist on having it. But you just provide that as quickly as you can. That's always going to be faster than trying to reschedule your interview to a time you don't know when, right? So it's much safer to attend the interview. Nepalese embassy is not sending the 2NL since the last VB. Yeah, they're probably busy with other things, but I wouldn't be at all surprised to see another big month from them in August, as we saw in a previous year. So it wouldn't surprise me at all. Okay, let's see. Just look for a couple more questions here that I can answer. Maximum months it can take to approve passport waiver. Some of the Somalis, I don't know. I don't know the maximum months it can take. It shouldn't take long because they understand the position for Somalis. But I don't have a maximum. I don't have a way of tracking all of that. Okay. Didn't get my 2NL in Djibouti. Case number is 35K. What I want to study in Khartoum. PCC, I did not. I did not. What next to do if I do not get PCC? If you need your PD certificate, go get it. I don't understand why you're not getting that. And you didn't get your 2NL yet. Okay. Yeah, it's not really clear. There's not very much about that question that's clear, to be honest. Is it possible that Algeria embassy will cap out and reach the 7% allowed? Yeah, very possible. I think it's quite likely. Thanks to the informative channel. Can you recommend a lawyer or a law firm that is knowledgeable and experienced in DV issues in particular? I'm 24 selectee and have to get a personal issue I need to get advised on. Jesse Bless would be my recommendation. You can check him out on blesslitigation.com, I believe. But Jesse Bless. is the gentleman I would recommend you to. You can also ask me questions at my blog, and you can ask in a way that is not personal. And there's almost no question that needs to be asked in private, which is why I answer questions in public. And when I answer questions in public, number one, I don't charge as a lawyer would. And number two, when I answer questions in public, more people can read the answer, so that it benefits more people. That's why I do it. So BritSimonSays.com, ask the question there first of all. See if you can phrase it in a way that protects your privacy. Okay. Okay. Can you travel after submitting the DS260? Yes, you don't need to update your your recent travels in your DS260 every time you travel. The DS260 should be accurate on the day you submit it, and then you travel. And if for some other reason you unlock your DS260, then you would update your travel history. But other than that, you don't need to unlock it in order to update every travel event you have or job change or those sort of things. It's not necessary. Okay. A lot of questions about, is there any chance for this embassy or that embassy? I've demonstrated several times here on this video how you check out your own embassy, how you can figure out whether your embassy is working well. How many cases are they scheduling in a month? Where are they backlogged to? When were the cases made current that they're now scheduling, right? So you should be able to figure that out in the way that I do. Joburg, let's see. My family had an interview in Joburg last month, put on 221G for lack of tax return from the sponsor. That's frustrating. You know that you're supposed to get that. We did submit it last Monday and we had a visa issued. Well, I'm glad it got resolved quickly. That was last month. That's interesting. So you had an interview in Joburg last month in May, and you've already had your visa issued this month. That's interesting because either Johannesburg had the number of visas available to assign to your case, which is possible, or they must have asked for visas to be assigned to your case, but KCC turned that around very quickly, which I'd be surprised at. So I'm kind of intrigued by what happened, the timing of what happened, because when you interview in May, let's say, or any month, and then you go on to 221G, your visas are sent back to KCC at the end of that month. And so it may be that we submitted last Monday. Yeah, that's in June, right? So they worked very quickly to issue those. I can only assume that was through a refusal for other cases, which they're allowed to do. Okay. AF39K, current, want to request embassy Romania to transfer my case. I will go to Romania for 1 month training. Show me all the procedure. You're saying, show me the procedure. Like it's a very precise thing. It's not a precise thing at all. If you're only going to be in Romania for 1 month, you're very unlikely to be able to get your interview scheduled there during that time. It's not as easy as that. And I explained on this video earlier that you sometimes have to get the embassy to work on your behalf in order to get transferred. So yeah, so that's all it is. But you can't, if you're only going to be there for a month, you've only got permission to stay there for 1 month, you probably can't use that embassy. Okay. What's the possibility of the Asia case number above 21,000? I don't know. I'm not making any predictions about that. Okay, just looking for a new sort of interesting question here. Do we certify our copies of our documents we present at the interview, even though we have the original and the copy? It varies by country. In some countries, documents are required to be certified by some authority. So you read the instructions for your country. You read the main instructions, then the reciprocity page for your country, and any country-specific instructions for your country. It's all available through the main instruction page. Okay, so go and study that, and it may or may not be required to certify those documents. Okay. Hallo, desde Cuba, Simon. Catch your breath. Ik telefoon What? I'm trying to translate this properly. So, he's not quite getting this. Not quite understanding what you're trying to ask there. Not quite understanding, Ricardo, what you're trying to ask. English is better for me. I speak Spanish, but badly. And I'm struggling with the translation of what you're saying there a little bit. And winners 2023. My interview was February, Bahrain, 221. Yeah, I can't predict. You're asking me to predict something that's unpredictable. I7, there was no movement in Oceania for the July visa bulletin. Yeah, there were no movement in any of the regions. There was only country movement. It's worrying at 1650 that we may see a small increase next month, but there's no guarantees, of course. And so they may feel they have enough people under 1650 to fill up all the remaining capacity of the embassies and quota. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. There's no way I can predict that. I can't predict what they're going to do. But it was always obvious that we were going to see. I mean, I say obvious. I mean, obviously, I was careful not to be too precise. So I don't like giving sort of certainties. But at the same time, with 120,000 selectees, there are too many people for too few visas. And so there's got to be someone who misses out. And the highest case number is who's supposed to miss out. Okay. How much DV lottery winner should stay in the USA to become a citizen in 3 years or 5 years? It's 5 years. The 3 years is when you get married to someone. But for a lottery winner, you can start to go for citizenship after 5 years. There's a mathematical calculation of exactly when you can apply and that sort of thing. But basically, it's 5 years is the answer you're looking for. When should you contact the officer for checking about your case after AP? Contact them every week, right? Why not? I mean, it's not going to, it's not going to hurt your case to write to them every week or every other week. Just ask them, what's happening, but just be polite, okay? Okay. Says follow device. Good. Follow. Move from a poor performing embassy to another. Got the visa. Good. Moving to PA, Pennsylvania, early July. You shouldn't pay me anything. I don't do this for. I don't do this for money. So you don't owe me anything. Just pay it forward, right? So help somebody else in your life with whatever you can do. Okay, that's what I'd like you to do. Why are you not reading my comment? I just did. But is there another comment? It's a pity you wrote this one and not the comment. But why DV2024 can't check their DS260 application status yet, showing invalid number every time. The SEAC system, for whatever bird brain reason, the government thought this was a good idea. They set it up so that you can only check the SEAC status for cases from the 1st of January in the year in which that year starts. So in other words, the 1st of January 2024 is when we'll start to be able to get data from the SEAC system. It's so stupid, I can't even begin to tell you. But it's been this way for years, so it's just the way it is. I mean, the data's in there. It's just that they match on the date. It's the dopiest piece of programming. But, you know, the government pay peanuts, and that's why they get monkeys. Is it true that the time of waiting for F4 category family sponsors is 15 years? By the way, I'm from Algeria. I don't know. I haven't looked at that, and it's not my area of interest. My friend, he was asked a question about DV24. He fill education for high school, no degree. It's possible filing 260 high school with degree. Yeah. So there's when you enter the lottery, and also on the DS260, there's a drop-down choice that says to categorize your level of education. That's just for information only. It is not used as a way to filter out cases or a way to refuse cases or anything else like that. It is just informational, statistical gathering of information. So in the DS260, you enter the correct information, whatever that is, even if it's different to what you said on the DV entry. Okay, that's just the way it works. Okay, one more question. Let's see. I'll find one good question. Okay, last question here. If your daughter is above 21 and wasn't included on your DS260, will that be a problem? If on the day you entered the lottery, your daughter was below 21, then she should have been on your DV entry. If she was above 21 on that day, then no problem. But if she was below 21 on the day you entered, then yes, you would be. That is a problem, and you would be disqualified. Okay, so that's your answer there. So that helps. I hope you didn't do that, Winnie. Okay, everybody, I'm going to call that a day. I need to rest my voice a little bit now. Thanks for joining me. Please make sure you're subscribed. Give me a thumbs up on in the video if you liked it. And by all means, ask me questions at BritSimonSays.com. Okay, especially that guy that says I didn't read his question. Please ask your question on BritSimonSays.com. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.